Hello, my name's Zola Ray from Make Good Trouble. Last month, I interviewed Longfield, the Children's Commissioner for England, regarding children going back to education during the pandemic. And at the end of our interview, you had a couple of questions you wanted to ask young people, and we're going to give you our answers today. So thank you so much for getting involved, everyone. We really appreciate that. And I'll let my team introduce themselves, if that's okay.
Of course.
We'll start with you, Liv.
Hi, I'm Liv, I'm 16. I've been involved with Make Good Trouble for 5 or 6 months now, and I'm really loving it.
Hi Anne, I'm Gemma, I'm 17 years old, and I got involved with Make Good Trouble just after an interview I'd done with them late last year, I believe it was. That was for the second series of Raising Teens.
And then Jude, if you just want to say a little bit about how you're involved with us.
I've been involved with Make Good Trouble for about 3 months, maybe. No, less than that. 2 months, I'd say.
Brilliant, yeah. He's one of our newcomers. We're going to do the first question, which is, how do you feel young people want our society to change? And could you give us your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think a lot of young people do feel quite aren't maybe as used to kind of injustices and things like that go on around us. So obviously, you know, a lot of young people, we're not as used to some of the bad stuff that goes on. So I think young people can sometimes have a stronger sense of justice almost. And so I think even though it's very simple, probably one of the things most young people would want would be for people to just remember to be nice and like just to care about other people, because sometimes it can feel like we live in a world where people don't really do that.
And Liv, I wanted you to come in on this question as well. What do you think needs to change?
I think the way that we are looked as people is quite bad. I myself think that with the situation, especially that's going on with the lockdown, there have been many situations that I've been put in as well as some of my friends, where I feel as though I've been tarred with the same brush. It's the same stereotype of young people don't care, young people just think about themselves. And I know that a lot of people that I'm friends with that are my age and a little bit older, a little bit younger, feel very upset. It's very degrading, it's condescending, it's patronising, being told that you're a teenager so you don't matter and you input nothing into society, so it's whatever. I'd just much rather to be heard. I'd like to be heard, I'd like to be understood, and I'd like for other people just to appreciate that my knowledge may not be greater or better than anyone else's, but it's on the same level, and together people can have an understanding and make a better understanding, and therefore create a better society for other people, rather than going against age groups, everything like that, just for no reason.
No, do you want to chime in on this question as well? And
I was just going to ask whether you thought it had got worse during the coronavirus.
100%, yes.
And why do you think that is?
Because a lot of the time, regarding age groups of who could or couldn't be affected regarding the coronavirus, obviously it's not these people are going to and these aren't. If it happens, you know, but it's the fact of there are people down the beach. I myself live near the beach. I see a lot of people. Doesn't mean they're all teenagers, but I'm driving past and it's my own family as well. They're saying, oh, it's teenagers, they're all just going out partying and they don't care about other people, they don't care about their family. And so we all feel as though it's just like a very degrading situation to be in, because we're being overlooked, we're not being heard, and we're just being kind of degraded and put down.
You think that everyone makes an assumption it's teenagers, whether it is or not.
Yes.
And in terms of being heard, we're getting on some of that, aren't we?
Yeah.
People should, or older generations as such, should maybe try have more of an understanding, or try look back at their childhood and experiences they went through, and kind of take it as an approach. Well, when I was younger, I perhaps did this and I acted out of this way. And I suppose as you grow up through your childhood, through adolescence, you learn. I suppose that period in your life is where you make the most mistakes normally, and you learn from them and you take that experience forward with you. But I suppose what we also have to bear in mind now is that the younger generations are growing up in a time period where technology is so prominent. So in comparison to older generations where it wasn't so much, we're kind of, everything is there in front of us. It's available at the click of a button. And I think the media as well, it plays a major part in stereotyping and generalising a group of youth. You know, normally we don't see a lot of good stuff done with young people nowadays. You know, good news stories like all the work Make Good Trouble does. It highlights all the fantastic work that young people does within Brighton and Hove. Whereas the media, it will always hold one prime focus on other things. Specifically, I mean, yesterday, the Argus, I went driving past the seafront yesterday. It's actually gone in the news today. But there was a group of youths outside. There was a fight that was started. There was quite a lot of police cars, police vans, and they obviously portray it as young, underage drinking, causing trouble, and things like that. So I think it's also important to focus not only on the bad stuff, but also the good stuff that young people do. I mean, another example being, we know a member of our own Make Good Trouble team who organised that entire protest that took place in response to the death of George Floyd last week, and she's only 17. So I think whilst highlighting the negatives, we've also got to look at the positive sides to this.
Right on, Gemma. We don't hear enough stories about all the amazing young people like you guys, people like Kaya, who did organise the Black Lives Matter march last weekend, and we don't hear those stories. We only hear the negative things. And the reason all of those kids were out last night is because it was supposed to be their prom, and it's all being cancelled. What needs to change within our schools, our environment, and the ways decisions are made?
Like I just said, I think it's so important for people to take in the perspective of when they were younger, and remember the times remember the time when they were growing up, the feelings they had, the emotions they had towards certain things. I mean, it's very common for young people, I suppose, to not feel like their voice is being heard, like you said, Liv, because it's kind of got that, I suppose, stigma around it. You're only 17, whatever it is, your age, you're only the child, I'm the adult. I mean, the amount of times I've had that said to me. But usually a lot of children, especially nowadays, we can offer a better perspective than most can of the older generation on certain things and particular topics, social media again being one of them. But if in terms we're thinking about what needs to change within schools and the ways and decisions are made, I think the prime example, which we are seeing more of now, is children becoming more involved in the decision-making process of a lot of things, whether that's deciding on which teachers come and teach the lessons in schools or appointing new roles in schools. And I suppose appointing even people in higher positions of power, like, I mean, this might be a really controversial topic to bring up, but the voting age. I mean, for me, it's really difficult when we're the ones who are, I suppose, are going to be going forward with the next generations, and we're going to live in the future that's decided for us. So I feel like it's only right we should have have the ability to play a part in making those decisions. I mean, for me, I don't understand how someone can drive a car at 17 but not vote for the next prime minister or vote for the next president. For me, I just don't really understand that. So I definitely think a major change would be to involve young people a lot more in the decision-making processes, not only within schools, but within further education, higher up positions.
So on the age you're able to vote, how do you all agree on that, or is there split thoughts on it? Do you think it should be reduced to 16?
I'd be very happy with it at 16. What about you guys?
I think it should be 100%.
And I suppose with that, though, there also comes the opposing argument of whether we're at the maturity level to make those decisions, to implement new leaders to our country at such a young age. But at the same time, I can speak for myself. I feel mature enough to make those decisions. And I think it would be down to, like it is down to every individual, we don't see everyone voting when time comes around. It's up to them if they choose to do so. But I suppose nowadays as well, again, referring back to social media, so much stuff is put out there that will allow young people, that would be their access point, I suppose, for the information of which candidates they can choose. Everything is there for them with a click of a button. So I think with that in place, young people can kind of be guided to make the right decisions that obviously centre around their points of views and the perspectives that they have.
I kind of feel like
part of that conversation is that actually maybe age and maturity aren't the exact same thing. I think it's a really difficult conversation because obviously being 14, I know a lot of 14-year-olds who I think probably aren't quite mature enough to have a vote, but at the same time I think there are people over 16, over any age, you know, who are immature as well. So I think there's always going to be certain groups of people who feel excluded and feel like it's wrong, because it is very difficult when actually age, you know, that age and maturity aren't the same thing at the end of the day.
And I just wanted to say, with changing schools, it'd be great to see a more diverse range of different topics that we are learning in the curriculum, and especially at the moment, after all of the Black Lives Matter movement and that going on at the moment, there has been a real push from the younger generation to learn more about the history of our country, and not just the positive stuff. We need to learn about our history and all of it, even the ugly parts. And I think that's something that needs to be pushed forward, because we can't keep hiding and can't keep stepping around it. We need to know our history, and that means everyone that lives in the UK that calls themselves British. And I think that's a really important part that does need to change in our schooling system.
And do you think within schools the curriculum just doesn't have the space for that?
Yes.
So you think that, well, across the whole curriculum, you would include more of the kind of material you're talking about, so that people can kind of take a whole world view rather than what they might have now?
I think yes. I think it's not that there's no space. I think that there's just been no space made for it.
Do you intend to take that up when you get back to school yourself?
100%. If that was an option, if I had a club, if I had a class, 100%. It's something that everyone needs to do.
I mean, I would say that within a school, then, you know, young people themselves can raise these issues and start, you know, if you think there are deficiencies in what the school's teaching or giving space to, then as young people, there'll be ways you can do that. I mean, I would encourage you to do that if that's what, you know, you believe was happening.
Most definitely. Thank you.
Sorry, I definitely think the fact of there not being space is just the wrong way to look at it. I definitely think there is space. I just think the space is being taken up by the wrong stuff. We're learning about, sorry, no disrespect to Henry VIII, but I'm not too sure what I've taken forward with Henry VIII or any of the Battle of Normandies and things. I understand it's part of our history we need to know, but so is the slave trade, and so is the colonisation and all the things that followed on from that, because essentially the situation we're in now is that the systems that lay before us, the history that lays before us, is what has laid the foundation to which we're living upon. So we need to learn about that, learn about the history, and to change it, we need to, exactly like what I said, I'm repeating myself again, but we need to have an understanding of what came before us to implement some, I suppose, longer lasting changes on that. Especially now we're seeing a lot of things over social media, which is explaining, breaking down systemic racism, systematic racism, environmental racism. And I suppose it's having the understanding of where we came from, which perhaps in the past, I won't lie, I have disregarded in a way, because I think, well, hang on a minute, I'm not the best, let me think of the best way to say it. I'm not to blame for what my ancestors done before me, but like I just said, I've had to, through learning, through educating myself now, I've had to come to the understanding that, hang on a minute, yes, I might not be or not have played a part in what my ancestors done before me, but I am living off the foundation to which they laid. I am having my white privilege because of what they've done, and I don't know, the platform that they've laid before me. I'm now benefiting from that through society, and I suppose that's the entire problem. So we need to develop an understanding for that in order to change it.
And a broader social emphasis on social history generally, I guess.
100%. Take less time on Henry VIII and put more time in on what needs to be learnt about. 100%. I mean, even certain particular other classes, I mean, the curriculum could be changed in terms of reflect more on where young people wish to go with their lives. Like someone who, I suppose we have our core set lessons, which are maths, English, science, whatever that may be. but understand that I think that's another problem in itself, because I've been someone who, I've never enjoyed science, but I had to sit in and learn it. I've never enjoyed doing maths and doing these equations, but you have to sit in and learn it. I would much rather spend that time that I'm spending in that week learning about something that's gonna help my future or work towards the future aspiration that I may have. So I think it might be worth reflecting on that and looking at children's individual needs rather than as a collective, and then going forward in terms of the curriculum that is laid out for people and young people to learn from.
And I guess what you're saying as well, that you want more subjects to be kind of applied, as they call it. So, you know, want it to be applicable to lives. You've also got personal health and social education as well, where there's broader things within that, which, you know, some schools do a lot more of than others. But I guess what you're talking about is a more personalised, applied approach to facts and learning, because I think a dialogue with your teachers in your schools about this is a really healthy way to take it forward.
100%. I think there is things being worked on around that now. It might be that extracurricular activities get put in place to implement those changes for the time being, whilst more longer lasting ones get put in place.
I mean, my feeling is that, you know, when everyone goes back in September, that actually, you know, there'll be a period where the school has to kind of resettle, and there'll be lots more discussions about well-being and, you know, catch up in the broadest sense, if you like, and kind of just trying to come to terms with what's happened over the last few months in terms of the emergencies. So this is, you know, these are healthy kind of dialogues to have at that point, I think.
And I also wanted to add on as well, we should maybe encourage more emotional well-being as well.
Yeah.
Because obviously that's maybe something that isn't focused too much on school. I know school is designed to prepare us for the workforce and for life, but I think that's maybe something that we don't get enough of at school, actually how to be emotionally honest with yourself and with other people as well, and to be able to communicate and have healthy relationships, because if we're unable to do that, we're going to be unable to work, and we're going to be unable to perform well in life. So this one is directed towards you, Liv, if that's all right. So what has the coronavirus emergency told us about the way that we live our lives as a society?
First and foremost, the thing that comes to mind when you say that is that we take a lot of things for granted, whether it be social gatherings, meeting your family, going shopping, etc. For me, a trip to the shops right now is like a day out. I love it. I get so excited, right? Like, I get myself all dressed up and I'm like, oh, I'm going to Tesco, you know? I get so excited. And I think that we massively take things for granted. Oh, I know. And I went surfing today, you know? People take that for granted, you know, because you can't do that. But especially now, I can't see my family. People can't see their family. People can't hug. People can't do what they expect to be the norm. And I think that we are living in a society where we are everything's handed to us on a golden platter. We expect it all. We expect to be able to pop around to the shops and grab a bottle of drink and whatever else, you know. We expect to be able to go out with our friends and have a great night on the beach, or go out and go to concerts, you know. It's a given thing, but that's the society that we live in. I think that it has very much brought to light how high of an expectation we have for ourselves as well as other people that have a duty towards us. And I think that it's very upsetting, and it's upset me massively, because I can't see my family, I can't see my friends, and it actually makes me reflect on myself. And I have realised that I am a very, very selfish person, and over lockdown I've given myself a lot of time just to realise that I'm very selfish. I'm quite self-centred. I've tried to reflect on that. I've tried to alleviate that as much as I can, to get rid of it, to sort it out. But I just think that a lot of people are so self-centred, and it's tunnel vision. It's just an expected thing. It's that, oh, I can do what I want when I want. And now that we've been put in a situation where we can't do that, it's upset a lot of people. A lot of people have tried to fight back, even though there's nothing to fight, and there's no one to fight, because what's happening is happening. There's nothing you can do about it. And so a lot of people are just in shock about it, but they don't know how to react.
So it has been, I mean, it's been a shock, isn't it? You use the word shock, and I think that's, you know, that's the right word. And for a lot of people, older people as well, this is the first time where it's the first time in my kind of lifetime where things have all stopped at once, or there's been this huge kind of communal experience all at once. I mean, people talk about it in terms of similarities to wartime, if you like, when everyone experienced something enormous at the same time. And there is something about that that feels different, isn't it? It feels that actually we're all experiencing something together, but actually to have this time where we've had to be locked down, then we've had time to think about, essentially the way we run our lives and the way we are with other people. And I think that's, quite unique, really.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good time now, especially for the generation that we are, who we are as people. I spoke to my grandparents, we went and sat in their garden, we had a conversation, and they said to me, they were like, we haven't lived through anything like this, we don't know what to do, we haven't seen any of the family, which is upsetting. Yeah. However, they know not to put themselves in a situation where they could be at harm. My dad, I'm a young carer for my dad, and I know myself that if I put myself in a situation where I'm at risk, he is massively more so at risk. So it's about then thinking about what I take for granted, which is meeting people, going to the shops, meeting anybody else, going to work, just going for a walk. You have to be so careful now. And I think a lot of people now are taking for granted the fact that they can go to the shops, or they are abusing the minimal power that they have. So you can go to a shop. Okay, right. So people are running up and down the aisles, not 2 meters away. I'm panicking because I'm making sure that my dad's okay. And it's just upsetting and irritating because a lot of people think that they are massively superior in some ways, or just think that, oh, it's not going to happen to me, I'm fine, I'm going to be okay, but it's not about you, it's about everyone else. So I think that one of the things that a lot of people take for granted is other people's health.
I know I've definitely taken a lot of things for granted, like with everything, but through experience you learn. And definitely the coronavirus has taught me to be on my phone a lot less, as well as social media. I think that's also important. Yes, that's very important, because you can absorb too much and then it's a reoccurring effect on your mental health, etc. And definitely in terms of spending time with people, like I would go to friends' houses and things, and I'd probably sit on my phone a majority of the time. We'd look up. I think we can all say we go to people's houses and everyone's sat there on their phone. We're not really interacting. Yeah. And as humans, we do thrive. Exactly. And as humans, we do thrive off face-to-face contact and hand-to-hand contact. So I think it's been really difficult, and definitely a message to take forward is to probably spend less time on your phone and be more present in the moment. Definitely is one lesson I learned from this whole pandemic.
That's really important, isn't it? Because being present in the moment is what connects people. It's difficult to connect when someone isn't in present at the moment, and
100%.
It's a really striking realization.
So I want to come to you first, Jude, because we haven't heard from you in a bit. What would you do if you were PM for the day?
I'd panic.
Brilliant.
I'd probably spend most of the day panicking, but then I think I would just try and knuckle down almost, and just look at stuff that I think is right and stuff that I've always complained about, and just try and fix it.
If you had to choose 2 things in your day to have a go at.
Oh man, I'm panicking now. Probably rights for LGBT people.
Okay.
Stuff like that type of thing, combating prejudice around that type of thing, and then also probably trying to combat poverty, because that's just something so many people have to go through, and something that you almost don't hear about that much, even though everyone knows people who are going through stuff like that. So for me, those, if I had to pick 2 things immediately.
Right.
Brilliant answer, Jude. Really fantastic. Liv, should we come to you next?
I'd say the two things that I would dominantly work on as soon as I could is the education system, first and foremost, because I think that a lot of people need to be educated, therefore the generations to come will have much stronger voices than we do, and they will fight for what is right, therefore creating a better society and a better world in general. The second thing that I would dominantly work on would be involved in human equality, human rights. I'd say just making sure that everyone's on an even keel, everyone's together, whether that be changing laws or changing any situations, just to make sure that nobody is left out based on gender, money, age, anything,
So that's your one day. Say you got to be PM for 5 years. What would the education system look like at the end?
There would be much more real life subjects being taught, very much more dominant, prevailing situations. So things about human rights, things about sexuality, human identity, who you are as a person, because I know that a lot of people my age or a bit younger may be struggling with that, and they won't have any kind of conversation with their parents because they may not feel comfortable to. So maybe having classes to educate themselves and people around them so they may feel comfortable then to talk with friends about it. I think the conversations about death and life and religion need to be brought into light, not about, oh, this is the history of it, but this is what it is now, and this is what you're going to be raised with, and this is how you're going to live it. Are you happy with that? I think there need to be more conversations and more classes about just in general people being people being equal, people being together.
And do any of your PHSE classes do subjects like this?
Hit and miss.
No.
The ones about sexual intercourse were very, very hit and miss. They were very awkward. I didn't feel comfortable to ask questions. I think that things need to be just more up in the air, more open. I think there are some conversations and some subjects that a lot of people may touch base on, but they won't really talk thoroughly about it. So it just needs to be more up in the air about things.
Okay.
I think if I could pick two, it would definitely Liv, like you said, be the education system, and a lot in which that entails. But my second one would probably be to do with a lot of work you probably do yourself, Anne, as the Children's Commissioner. It would be, I suppose, addressing a lot of issues that we see young people face, but more prevalent issues. So, like you said, Liv, around bereavement, young carers, particularly children in foster care. I want to become a barrister, and one of my goals is to actually take on the care system, or I suppose the legislation which surrounds the care system, to the Supreme Court. I've been watching too much How to Get Away with Murder. But to definitely implement some changes within that, because I feel that while we do see a lot of money and resources available for young children in care, I don't think the statistics or the results which we see are a kind of big enough picture of the great work that's done. Like I said, we should highlight as well the fantastic achievements done by young people. But I definitely think there's a lot of potholes, if that makes sense, what I'm trying to say, within the care system that are in deep need of reform, to help use the money, utilise the resources we have to show better, I suppose, results for more longer term effect. I definitely think that, because at the same time, like I've said, with a lot of things, the younger generations are the ones that are next coming forth. They're going to be the people who take over the next positions of power. So it's all, I suppose, about educating them, making sure they've got the resources and the tools and stuff they need to equip them for life, to go forward and make the right decisions and make this, I suppose, a better world that we can all live in and for our children to grow up in. So definitely, they would be my two.
Did you want to say anything to that, Anne?
Well, I just think those were all really thoughtful and really reflective answers that were, I think, you've obviously thought about these things deeply, and great that you're going to be, you're trying to be a barrister, because some of this is about not waiting for someone else to do this. you know, we've all got our own agency, and if we all wait for someone else to do it, we'll all end up being kind of disappointed and you know, disgruntled at the fact things aren't happening like we want them or at the pace we want them. So I just think, you know, as part of you obviously you're all really articulate, you've got forum, you've got plans yourself, but also some really quite deep considerations. I would just say, you know, continue to do what you're doing and talking about them and engage with people, but also in your own situation, where if you can apply that back into, you know, your own context with that school or community or elsewhere, then, you know, there's things that you can achieve. So I just say, you know, go for it, really. And thanks for sharing that with me. I mean, you just made some really fantastic points, so thank you.